Hi, my name's Steve Martile, and in today's video, we're going to talk and dive into the new human upgrades and abilities. And I'm actually going to start with some things that I've discovered this year. And I also want to hear from you. What are you discovering about some unique natural talents and abilities that are coming up that might seem kind of odd because no one in your family or no one in your small circle of friends has these abilities, or they've even talked about them. So it's something that's not common, but it's something that is showing up for you. The reason I started to think about this is because I was talking to my massage therapist today, and we're both these light workers. We're both here, as Dolores Cannon calls, as volunteers, okay? Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, so I don't know if you've ever read any of Dolores Cannon books. This is book 1 of her Convoluted Universe. I highly recommend it. Books 1, 2, and 3 are really good. And the reason I'm mentioning her books, she's passed away now, but the reason I'm mentioning Dolores' books is because whatever she was channeling to get the content for these books, she would go through, and if you don't know her work, what she would do is she would actually take people into a deep hypnosis trance, and then she would like channel information through that person from another dimension, okay? Another entity, potentially someone from the past, someone in the future, from another dimension, but basically pulling the words through the participant's mouth, through their voice, information that she used to write all 3 books, okay? And these are like 600-page books, I think. But they're excellent. I read them really fast. I think I read each one in a couple weeks or a week. And the reason I'm bringing this book up, and this series up, is because in one of the books, and you got to remember this one here, book 1 was published in 2001, so 23 years ago. In book 1, since this one's 23 years, and then every one after that, like these books are really old books, like 2 decades old. But one of the things she said is in 2024, we're going to see a human ascension and upgrades, okay? And so that means on an individual level, we're going to see upgrades. Now, not everyone's going to get these upgrades. That's why I said if you're getting them, if you're noticing them, and I'll share some examples, then please share in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're experiencing differently from the past. And if you're not, that's okay too. We're at the beginning of 2024. We still got 9 months to go. So the reason I'm bringing it up is that Dolores' channeling, the work that she did in her books, was spot on. I can't believe like they predicted this 23 years ago. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've been going through this upgrade process. So let me just talk about like some of the things that were probably unusual for most people that I've always had kind of like as part of my, my makeup as who I am in this physical incarnation. And that's one is like, just like knowing things, like having a knowing of things. Like if I wasn't in my head, and this took, a few years to develop because I was so, my mind was so noisy. My self-talk was so noisy that I couldn't pick up these subtler vibrations. But this sense of knowing has been always with me, and it's been very strong for the last, I would say, 10 years. To the point now, like in this year, 2024, like when I get someone that books a call with me to publish a book, I will like go through, look at their profile, read what they filled out in the form, look at their phone number, where are they located geographically, and I'm like, that's a client. Like I just have this knowing, and I haven't talked to them. They don't know who I am, and then they sign up as a client. Now, am I 100% accurate with that? No, because sometimes I get in my head and, ego and stuff. But I would say 8, 9, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 times, I'm pretty accurate and I'm pretty spot on in terms of like knowing when a client will sign up. And that's just one example. Sometimes I'll get a feeling of like knowing that I'm going to be doing something before I actually do it. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to do that. And one was to start this business. I knew I had this like very strong feeling. I was like, oh, I'm going to be involved in the publishing industry. Before I even did it, I was like this is going to happen. It's like, some people say it's inevitable, like that word, it's inevitable. It's just going to happen. That's how I felt about this thing. It was just like, I was intellectualizing the feeling, but it was really a knowing. I was just like, I'm going to do this. So sometimes I get that. knowing before it happens. Okay. Sometimes I get knowing about relationships and stuff and other people, but mostly it's like what I'm doing. Don't always get it about other people. But here's the big one that's been coming in for me this year is around dreams. So this is like without fail has always happened beginning this year is that I've talked about dream journaling on my channel before, how I go in and I will write my dreams. And I've gotten, I guess there's a skill to it, but really it's not much to it. You just write down what you're dreaming. But one of the things I do, and you'll see this in I have a video and I can link it at the end of this one. I talk about asking your subconscious what the dream was trying to show you. And it's just a question like, what is this dream trying to show me? And when you write down the dream, you'll get an answer to that. And usually that message can be something around your life, but it could be about other people. Well, now I'm getting it all the time about other people, specifically clients. So what happens is that when I have a client meeting, let's say I'm going to meet with someone or I have a client meeting. Usually it's anyone that's a client. And I have two types of clients. I have people who publish books and I have people that come to me for energy balancing, which is to release deeply rooted blocks, right? Those are the only two things I do. Out of those two things, when I have a client, the night before when I dream, without fail, I get a dream and it's about the client. Now, is the dream about me and and I'm dreaming about the client and their physical human, avatar? No. That's not what it is about. I just get a dream. And usually there's me and some family members in the dream. But again, I got one this morning where I wrote it down and I was like, oh, this isn't about me at all. And so the reason I'm telling you this is because I get these dreams right before I have a client call. And usually, like I said, without fail, the dream is about where the client is blocked. And I can't get into too many specifics because obviously a lot of the things I do with clients is confidential. But I mean, I might get a feeling in the dream of being trapped. And then I'll wake up and I'm like, and I'll realize I'm like, oh, I was trapped, but I could psychically talk to this person. So I wasn't really trapped. I'm like, why was I experiencing the feeling of being trapped? And then I would say, as I'm journaling, writing down the dream, what is the subconscious? What are you trying to show me? And then the subconscious will say, trapped feeling. And then I'm like, is this about this client? And then the subconscious says, yes. I'm like, oh, okay. Because it's never about me. As soon as I started doing this, like I said, without fail, which has been like the last 3-4 months, it's never been about, I started doing it late last year because I was like, oh, what the heck's this dream? It's kind of weird. It's kind of icky. It doesn't feel like who I am. And so then I'll write it down. I'm like, oh, this is about my client. And so, and then this is the interesting about the business I am in is that regardless if I'm doing energy balancing with people or I'm writing a book with them, a lot of these, I would say all of these people that are authors have never written a book before. So they have to go through this process of like pulling out ideas from their subconscious. And some of them they haven't really processed yet. So there is this therapeutic aspect to the writing. And so sometimes when I'm like, I go to sleep and I have a client meeting next morning, I get this weird dream, I write it down. Oh, this is about Bob, or this is about Jill. Oh, and I get a lot of detail like what's the energy that's trapped in the body? What does it feel like? And where is it in the body? And I'm like, I could help them if they want to deal with it, or they can deal with it by writing. Like I said, it's very therapeutic. The writing process can be very therapeutic. And sometimes that's all it needs is they need to keep writing about it and then it'll go away. But I have pinpoint accuracy of what's going on with them. It's not about me anymore. And it's interesting because, all through these years, I would say, geez, since 2006, so we're talking almost 2 decades, everything that I was doing, everything that I was practicing was about eliciting and like surfacing these dark shadows within me. Now it's not about me at all anymore. I get these dreams because it's about them. Where am I getting the dreams from? I don't know. I have no idea. It's information I'm getting in the dream because my analytical mind is not in the way to interfere. So that's the best way for the higher self to communicate with me. Sometimes I say my guides because I feel like they're family almost. Like they just they're here to protect me, but they're also giving me information so I have advance notice. And sometimes when I go into, say, with a client meeting, and after having one of these dreams, I'm like, oh, I already know where they're stuck, or where the energy's trapped in the body. I'll go into the conversation, we'll do the energy balancing, and then we'll come out of it. And then I'll say to the client, I'm just letting you know I had a dream about this. I already knew what the issue was. And they'll be like, I can't believe you had a dream about me. And I'm like, it's not about you. It's a dream about me, but the energy, it's like I'm taking on their physical body or their energetic body in the dream. And then emotions come up. And these emotions are things that are like the feeling of being trapped, right? They might not even be aware of it, but when I bring them into the trance, then they actually start to feel the feeling. And then we're like, do you want to keep that or not? And then they say no, and then we balance it, and then it's gone. So anyways, long story short is this is one of the new human upgrades and new abilities that I've gotten. All I gotta do is write down my dreams. Everything else is automatic. So it's not channeling, I guess you could say, because I'm doing it out of the dream, but that seems the best way that my guides or my higher self can operate with me and use me as a vehicle to like help other people. And that's really the biggest upgrade that I've seen. And it's like without fail, it's like pinpoint accuracy of what the issue is. And then we deal with it. So I know what the problem is before the client is consciously, because I'm pulling it out of my dream. So my question for you is, have you been noticing these upgrades? Have you been noticing these new abilities? Are you starting to see that something over the last 6 months or 12 months has started to become more common for you that is very uncommon for a lot of other people? If that's the case, please share in the comments below. I want to know what it is that you're experiencing. What is this new ability? What is this upgrade that you've seen? And then secondly, how are you using it? I'd be really curious to know what it is and how you're using it. And I think in that way, we can connect and be like, you know what? We might be the odd ones out. I don't know if this is 1 out of every 100 people that have this, or 1 out of every 10, or 1 out of every million. But I'd love to hear from other people that are experiencing this, because for me, it's very common. It's very like, I'm familiar with it. I'm comfortable with it. It doesn't feel awkward at all. I'm like, oh, here comes a dream again. I write it down. And then I'm like, going to the meeting. I'm like, oh, it's about them. It's not about me anymore. So anyways, I'm kind of like a pseudo, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a conduit for this information to go to the client, which is really interesting because I've talked to channels. I've had people channel information to me, but I've never really been a quote unquote channel. But I find that the dreams are giving me this kind of this extra tool that I can use whenever I want to assist someone that needs help. And it's not like I call on it. I don't have to like pray or be intentional when I go to sleep. I just go to sleep. And then the dream will wake me up, because it's usually like there's emotion behind it, right? And I'll write it down. And then I'll be like, what is the purpose of this dream? Like, what is it trying to show me? And then it will be like this emotion. And then I'll be like, who's this? Is this about? And then I'll think of someone as I'm feeling the emotion. And I'll be like, yeah, that's who it's for. What a great way to have access to infinite intelligence, right? So anyways, long story short is I wanted to hear from you. What new human upgrades and abilities are you starting to sequence? Are you starting to pull to the surface? And how are you using them? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I have a new YouTube channel that I'm starting. I'm not going to reveal a lot at this point, but I'm going to start posting some clips from this new channel here because it's relevant to the ascension of humanity and kind of like what it entails as we go into humanity's next chapter. Okay, so I will be sharing some videos here on that. Thanks for watching and listening. I highly recommend you get Dolores's book if you haven't. This is the first one of Convoluted Universe, and the books 2 and 3 are really good too. I stopped reading at that point, but again, like for a reason, it showed up. She talks about this other thing that I won't get into this video called the volunteers. I think this is really cool. If you're a light worker, you might want to read about that in her book. And if you have already read it, let me know in the comments. That'd be cool to hear. And again, of course, if you want, you can get my book, 7-Day Manifestation Experiment, pretty much anywhere. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name's Steve. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. Add the notification bell when I add new videos, and please subscribe if you've never watched one of my videos before. Thanks again for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you next week.